Welcome back to the Big Lab podcast. In this episode, I speak to Steph. She works in the emergency services and she tells us all about how it can affect her mental health in a positive and negative way. I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, make sure you drop it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. And I'll let you get on with the episode.
Steph, welcome to the Big Lab podcast. It has been a long time coming. How are we?
Has indeed. All good this end. How are things with you?
Not too bad, thank you very much.
Good.
Would you like to give... Yeah, it definitely is. Would you like to give yourself like a little introduction on what you do and, well, specifically what you do for work, because that is one of the things that we're going to be speaking about today.
It is indeed. So I work for the ambulance service, have done for about a year and a half, full-time for just over a year. I was a building surveyor for 2.5 years. After doing a master's in building surveying and decided to have a little bit of a change of career.
What was the reason for the change?
I think more for my happiness, which obviously is partly why we're doing this, and my sort of mental health and finding something that I genuinely love to do. And life is so short, and I think we had conversations about that when I was leaving as well. And wanting to not dread every Monday morning, because there's a lot of Monday mornings to dread at the end of the day. So when I found something that I absolutely love, I couldn't not do it.
So what specifically in the ambulance service are you doing?
So I am frontline, 999 calls, 5 days a week, 12-hour shifts. Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It is, but I love it, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
So, first of all, you were doing building surveying.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into that in the first place?
So, I did my undergrad uni degree in business and finance and worked within a finance department of a building surveying company. And then the surveyors were never in the office. They were always out and about. So I was like, that's what I want to do. So came back home from Sheffield to Liverpool, did my master's in commercial building surveying and got a job. And I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I did enjoy it. Great people, everything like that. But I was in the office a lot more than I thought I'd be.
Right.
COVID hit. Good old COVID, worked from home a bit, still went into the office. We were quite lucky and managed to do that. But then I was speaking to one of my friends who's a paramedic, and they said, why don't you just do a bit of weekend work with these guys, do the odd event so you can help people, all of that malarkey, and it might just give you a little bit of satisfaction out of life. And it did the opposite. It egged it on more.
What sort of events were you doing then? Was it like festivals and stuff like that?
Chester races, the odd festival.
Dealing with drunk people.
Yeah, testing me. But no, I absolutely loved it. And I thought, you know what, this is what I want to do. Be able to help people, be there for people when it is one of the worst days of their life and potentially make a tiny bit of difference to them. And that job satisfaction outweighed pretty much everything else, the money or whatever, because obviously as a building surveyor you're on a nice little, paycheck, but to me my happiness is worth an awful lot more, and very few people do find something that they love to do, and I found it. So I'd rather be happy in what I do and love it. Yeah.
Good on you. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people sort of looking for, because I think the way this country works, especially with like education system and things like that, you're sort of programmed to just get your results, find a job.
Yeah.
And obviously you originally thought you wanted to go down that route of building surveying.
Yeah.
Quite quickly found that maybe it wasn't necessarily the right thing for you, and you were willing to sort of take a pay cut to go and do something that you actually genuinely loved.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for your friend maybe suggesting that weekend work, you could potentially still be sat in that job right now.
Absolutely. And I think as well it is hard, because I have obviously I was starting to work towards my chartership as a building surveyor. I was starting to build that portfolio of clients, properties, whatever. I was starting to become a building surveyor, and actually I've had to take a step back and realise I've done 5 years of uni, and actually I'm having a massive change of career again, and potentially going back, taking steps back. But ultimately I'd rather take those steps back and do something that fulfills me and I enjoy than stick at a job just because I've done uni and I've put all that money and time into a job. But if I'm not 100% happy, I'd rather take a couple of steps back and work towards what I love.
Yeah, sometimes it's worth taking maybe a step back to then take a big step forward, because obviously, like you say, you took the pay cut, which is probably the step back, but the step forward is in your mental health and sort of happiness long term.
And I think people are so scared to do it then.
Yeah, I imagine the pay will catch up anyway in the long run at some point. Maybe not quite to the top levels of maybe what a building surveyor could earn, but you never know where it could take you.
No, and I think, it is a step back for me, but long term I'm going to be so much happier, and already I'm so much happier, even just in, relatively speaking, a short amount of time. And I think my family and friends have noticed a difference in that side of me, which is huge.
Well, that's good. But what is, like, you say, like, your happiness has increased, but what exactly is it? Like, what out of it do you get that makes it so much better?
Probably obviously the normal, you're helping people, the job satisfaction, everything like that. But the environment that I'm in, it is constantly changing. No job is the same. No job that we're attending, the majority of the time, it isn't what it comes through as to us. And that's what I think I've always wanted and always looked for, is that ever-changing environment. And I did think it was like that before, and it was to a certain extent, but that ability to actually go into situations and have no idea what I'm turning up to, it's priceless, and it's exciting. It is exciting, and I love my job, and obviously I help people every day and can make even a tiny bit of difference. Not even the big jobs of saving lives, etc. Just being able to sit down with a little old lady and make her a cup of tea, that if she doesn't have people to do that with, you've made a huge difference to her, and that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, I can imagine there's no days the same, like, at all. Like,
No.
you've told me, like, over Instagram and stuff, some of the things that you've been to. I don't think I could do a day in your shoes, to be quite honest.
I think it'd be great. Come out for a day.
But I'm not too sure about that. Like, put it this way, I'm not very good with blood at all. So any gory stuff,
I used
you're
to have.
You're going to be putting me on a stretcher into the back of my.
I'll be real. Just hang on a minute. Bit of dramatics over here.
Yeah, exactly.
You do get used to it, though. I used to have a horrendous phobia of needles.
I'm not very good with them either.
Yeah, I've quickly had to get over that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, especially being front line. I can only imagine some of the things that you've had to sort of attend.
Yeah, but do you know what? It's good, and we all do it because we love the job. We're all in it.
Well, I think you have to.
Emergency services is because we love it, because we want to make a difference to people. And that's ultimately what we go out every shift to do, is to try and make somebody's day a little bit easier on the worst day of their life.
Do you think you almost become like numb to it?
Yeah.
It's like, have you got to? Like, I imagine you just have to not let like too much emotions into it, and you've got to just sort of crack on and sort of keep a level head.
Obviously there are jobs that bother you, and it's probably the jobs that you don't even expect to bother you. But you do have to. You find ways to protect yourself, whether it's something as small as, I don't know, you just learn to disconnect sometimes from the situation, from the emotional side, because otherwise you're not going to last a month, because, you're dealing with trauma every single day and situations that most people don't even see in a lifetime, where particularly major frontline staff are seeing every shift. So you do learn to protect yourself from it. Don't get me wrong, as I just said, you have jobs which do bother you, and there are always going to be jobs that bother you because we care. And the minute we stop caring is the minute we shouldn't be doing our job.
Yeah.
But it's learning how to cope with those jobs that do bother you and having that support system and your coping mechanisms for when you're at home to overcome those trickier jobs.
Yeah. I've got a cousin and a family friend that are both nurses, and sort of quite early on in their careers, they were sort of introduced to sort of, you know, your first dead body almost.
Yeah.
Just to sort of, instead of that being like a lingering thing, to sort of just, this is the worst thing you're going to see potentially.
Yeah.
So you can sort of, like I say, like almost become numb to those sort of situations.
Yeah.
And not have too much emotion around it. So you mentioned you've got to have like your coping mechanisms on how to deal with those situations that may bother you and sort of may come back home with you. What are your sort of ways of coping?
So probably it's really simple. My main ones are I've got the most amazing friends now through work. We obviously all go to the same sorts of jobs. We all see the same sorts of things. We get it. Whereas coming home, people who've never experienced it, no matter how hard you try and explain it, they don't understand it, and you don't really want them to sometimes. So using that support system in work of your friends, even something as simple as giving them a call on your way back, hands-free obviously, from shift, but phoning them.
Driver safety in here as well.
But just phoning them and chatting it through them and being like, do you know what, this has bothered me today? And they say after 72 hours, if you're still thinking about it and can't shift it, you know, I'd escalate it and speak to somebody probably more senior and more qualified in work. And we have part of private healthcare counselling, like online, that we can go through as well. And I think I'm looking into doing almost counselling once a month. Not because I need it, but it's there for before I need
years,
it.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And even small things like when I come home, if I don't want to talk about a job, as soon as I'm out of my uniform, I don't talk about work. I try not to talk about the day. And I think from my family's point of view, they understand as soon as I'm out of my uniform, that's it. We don't talk about it. And I'm
pretty similar. I mean, obviously, I don't see the things that you see. I sit in front of a screen with a load of numbers on. Being a project accountant, it's not even comparable. But I have a similar thing that as soon as I've left the building or as soon as my laptop's off, that's it. Like I used to go. So obviously, in like the corporate world, there's like you've got to do the social side of things sometimes, and I've been to events where we're literally having drinks, we're sitting down for meals, and people are still talking about work. And I'm like, we've just done a whole day. Mm-hmm. Like, let's sort of leave this till tomorrow, especially with alcohol as well. I think you've got to have that separation where you don't bring the work home or to the social side of things. And
I think that is hard, isn't it? Particularly as well if like your friends are from your work, from your career. And I had this conversation with two of my really good friends from work this week, actually. We had a few drinks for my birthday. And I was saying it's so nice we haven't spoken about work.
Yeah.
And that's when you know you've got those true friends. But, you know, they know, they can look at me and be like, what's up? And I'm like, nothing. And then they push it. And I'm genuinely like saying, what's up, talk about it. And it's fine if they're there if I need them. Yeah. But we have that friendship where after work, you don't talk about work unless...
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's good that they understand when to sort of push you and nudge you to have that conversation and when to just have a drink.
Yeah.
And if we were going off your Instagram, you go for a drink quite a lot.
We had this conversation, didn't we?
We did.
I've got an alcohol drink.
To be fair, they're all spread out photos. It's not like close together. There's quite a bit of time between each one. But we were trying to find a photo to use for the thumbnail for the YouTube video. And every single photo that Steph had was with a glass of wine.
I'm either with somebody or I've got a drink in my hand, haven't I?
Yeah.
So do you know what? When the next night out, I'm going out in a couple of weeks, I'll get a picture of me with no alcohol in my hand, just so we've got one.
Maybe we can change the thumbnail photo.
Yeah, just the one.
We'll see. going back to it, like we were saying, it is good to sort of separate work and social. Like, I've always sort of done that in general. Like, I used to actually organise a payday pub trip with work, and on the invite to people was literally no speaking about work, because
It's so
we've all
important.
just done we've all just done a full week at work. But why do we want to carry on that outside of our day jobs?
Yeah.
Let's go and have a fun and chat about rubbish, chat about the footy, whatever.
Oh, sensitive subject, isn't it?
Yeah, let's not talk about the football. Yeah, I mean, there's still a second leg, but this will actually be out after that's happened. Yeah.
We'll have to do a little edit at the end.
Yeah, I might have to cut this section out. But yeah, so we were obviously talking about the mental effects of your work, and there's obviously the positives and negatives, and clearly the positives far outweigh your negatives, because otherwise you wouldn't still be doing it.
No.
Like,
couldn't still be doing it. It is.
No.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense.
It's not the most perfect job in the world, and I have bad days. Like, everybody has bad days. But I can honestly say I have more good days than I have bad days. And even things like our crewmates, you're spending 12 hours with somebody. I am finding out more about this person than a lot of people probably find out in a year of being in an office with somebody. Like, I'm building the most amazing relationships with my colleagues, and, you know...
You have to, though, don't you, really, in those situations? If you're not working as a team, then things are probably going to go south pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I imagine spending 12 hours a day on shift with someone, quite often, I imagine you're driving around between jobs. It's a lot of time spent sort of in an intimate sort of environment. It's
literally just you and them in the front of a cab, and then trying to figuring out how people work to give the best to the patients. You know, it's all so important, and learning more about the people you're working with, it's easier to find that out and give that best treatment to the patients.
So, this is the next topic then. You're actually on about leaving the ambulance service, aren't you, and moving towards the fire service?
Potentially, yes.
Potentially. Because, well, for those who don't know, Steph was one of my one-to-one clients, and is now sort of on a workout-only basis.
I love how I sort of there.
What?
Sort of.
Well, yeah, when you decide to go
when I decide to turn up to the gym, yeah.
Yeah, or apply or anything like that. But moving away from that, we won't get into that. But yeah, the aim was for us to get Steph fit and ready for the fire services sort of fitness test.
Yeah.
Which is coming up in a couple of months, if I remember rightly.
Yes, March, April time. Well, I think it's about April sort of time, yeah.
So what is your reasoning behind potentially moving away from the ambulance service to the fire service, especially with all that you've just said about how much you enjoy it and how good it is for your mental health?
Yeah.
Is it just you want to change it up and have a new challenge? Or...
Partly, yeah. So I've applied for a different role within the ambulance service.
So what would that be?
To train to be a paramedic. So I'm not a paramedic yet. So it would be to train through another company to get my paramedics, which ultimately is my end goal, to get that.
So does that mean at the moment the calls that you turn up to are not sort of resuscitations, or would your sort of partner do that?
Yeah.
Oh, right. So you still do it, but you're not necessarily got the training for it.
So we have the training for that sort of thing, and often they'll just send another crew that's got a para if you need a paramedic on scene. And quite often we obviously go to the calls, and if we get there and go, actually, do you know what? This is bigger than what I can do. We'll just estimate it, get paramedics, get senior paras out there to come and assist, and that's across the whole.
So you want to be on more sort of a life-saving emergency services instead of maybe, like you say, it could be as simple as like picking someone up or helping.
Yeah.
I think you said like you literally help like people up the stairs that can't sort of move around the house and.
Yeah. So ordinarily, like our calls I attend tend to be the more the less serious calls to the lower category calls.
Right.
But obviously,
What does that sort of entail?
so normally people who have fallen, injured, can't get up. What else do I attend? Your GPs who are admitting people into hospital, those sorts of calls. But often the problem with those calls is because they're lower category, they take, your time response is bigger, so you can take longer to get to them. So those calls have been waiting a lot longer than ordinarily with the pressures on the service at the minute. They've been waiting a lot longer than ordinarily we would like. So those patients are obviously getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So those patients quite often are very poorly. So we still take them in, whatever. But obviously your paramedics are going to your major traumas normally there. But if I'm the closest vehicle, and let's say there's a cardiac arrest, God forbid, and that's what we're being sent to, we'll be diverted to go to that. There's nothing stopping us being sent.
Right.
So we just tend to have to wait for a paramedic to do their side of it, but we can at least start and try and get part of it done.
So the end goal is to be a paramedic. What is the reasoning for sort of wanting to be on those higher risk sort of calls? Like, do you not think that may give you a sort of increased stress and maybe take some of the happiness away from the day job? Or what is it? What is the reasoning behind you moving towards those higher risk calls?
Obviously.
Or higher priority?
So obviously I genuinely love learning. I'm not even afraid to say it. I'm an absolute nerd. I love learning new things and learning so much more and developing my skill set and being able to turn up to a patient and go, I know what you need. This is how we're going to do it. Whereas even if I know now, there's nothing to, if it's beyond my scope of practice, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I think when you get your
Got to have that confidence on you.
Yeah, get your paramedics. Obviously, don't get me wrong, still sometimes they go, do you know what, we need to escalate it to, I don't know, get doctors involved and all sorts, get HEMS over. But I want to be able to turn up to an incident and go, I know what you need, I can give it to you. And just learning and developing myself to be the best possible practitioner I could be. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a good place to be in those situations. You want to know what you're doing and have some sort of practice to back that up. So what is the reasoning for sort of taking, I guess it's almost like a sideward step to be in the fire service?
To be in the fire service. So
is that again just you wanting to learn and be a nerd and sort of gain more knowledge? Or
Yeah, so I think the fire service, I work quite closely with a lot of firefighters as well. They do a lot of medical, obviously they're quite often first on scene and all of that side of stuff. And I was speaking to one of them and their work-life balance seems to be a bit better than the ambulance service. Ours seem to be a bit better. And from the personal side of it, family related, you know, if I want kids, all of that side of stuff, I think that would be a better way to go. But then I'm toying, actually, I know I want to be a paramedic.
Yeah.
So it's toying between that at the minute. So I'm just keeping my options open and seeing where it takes me.
You say that hours are better.
That women are just as fit as men. I think that's with the fitness test.
Fair enough. So you say like the work-life balance potentially a bit better on the fire service. So is it not big 12-hour shifts?
They are 12-hour shifts, but they seem to be. It obviously it all depends what station you're at and what their rota system is. But for example, some of my colleagues, they'll do 2 12 hours and then 1 24-hour shift. So they have beds and stuff on station. And
I thought you meant like you're literally up from like 8 till 8 the next day, and like you've got to be.
They are on call, obviously the 24 hours, but they do have beds, so if they're not out on the road, they can sleep.
Right, just next to a big bell to wake them up in case they need to hop in the fire.
I was weirdly speaking to one of the fireys about this yesterday, and I was like, how do you wake? What if you oversleep? And they're like, there's no chance you're oversleeping through those alarms, like lights go on, sirens, bells. She was like, you're fine, don't worry. I was like, okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But the firey I was speaking to, he was saying, you know, he's not missed anything to do with the kids. You know, they've got sports day. He goes to the sports day. School plays, that sort of stuff. So it's just really keeping my options open and seeing which routes.
Planning ahead in case you have kids.
In case I have kids, yeah.
And you need to be there at sports bit. So it's not necessarily the line of work, it's more the work-life balance side of things.
Yeah, and that would be more why I would be going down that route. And it's, at the minute, it is something I'm considering and thinking about, because I am taking that step to apply to get my paramedics. It's obviously back in the question, actually, this would be a good time to go down that route and see which is more suited for me. But the applications only come out like once a year, so you've got to kind of grab it.
Got to get you in the gym and get you fit then, haven't we?
Going tonight, don't worry.
Good. So bringing it back to the mental health side of things, you say you have the coping mechanism of sort of your friends and your family around you. Are there any sort of online tools that you use, any websites or phone numbers that you can call?
Obviously, there's your usual, if you are really struggling, the likes of Samaritan Mind, all of those kind of guys, and you can phone them and they'll give you a chat. From my point of view, I've always, it's not a secret to anyone that knows me, I've always struggled with my mental health, and particularly anxiety, and I have worked quite hard at trying to find my own coping mechanisms to kind of overcome it. And it's small things like pushing myself massively out of my comfort zone. And
because we used to have problems with you actually getting into the gym, didn't we, when we first started?
I would sit outside the gym for an hour. I've got it down to about 20 minutes this week, debating whether I go in because there's people in the gym. And that's something that, I mean, if you meet me normally, my friends have said I had no idea you struggled with your anxiety. I
genuinely wouldn't have.
Well.
To be honest, when we've met as well, I wouldn't have thought you struggled, but obviously sometimes those things aren't always that visible.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, friends, no matter how well you know somebody, it is an art being able to hide it, and I think a lot of people do hide it. So, I mean, we were speaking before about my friends saying, you know, are you all right? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And they said, no, are you actually okay? And that's so important. And
sometimes that second question is what you need to sort of get the answer out there and sort of just get it off your chest almost. And
even just be like, do you know what? No, I'm really struggling. I don't want to talk about it, but your friends are aware, so they can just check in and send you an extra text that day or a couple of days later, how are you feeling today? Anything, you know, I'm at the end of the phone, and it makes all the difference. So I've had to work on myself being open to my friends and saying, actually, do you know what? No, I am struggling, which takes quite a lot for me. I
can imagine it does for anyone sort of in that situation, because I think quite often people are almost too proud to not open up and sort of admit that they're in a sort of bad position.
And I think as well, wanting to protect your friends, your family, and
not wanting people to worry about you and things like that.
And if people are struggling with the mental health, you know, I know with me, I never wanted somebody else to feel awkward because I was struggling. And I can guarantee you now they don't feel awkward. They just want to be there for you. And that's so important.
You've got to use those support networks that you've got around you, like family, friends, and then if you're sort of maybe even too embarrassed or don't want to open up to closer people, then there are those sort of online tools that you can use. There's numbers that you can call and speak to someone completely sort of anonymously. I can't get my words out then. It's been a long week. Well, probably longer for you with your 12-hour shifts.
I know, it was off today, don't worry.
But I think it is almost pushing yourself out of those comfort zones, because I've always said, like, when you push yourself out of the comfort zones, that's when the fun, or that's when the growth happens.
Yeah, and that is, honestly, I've done so I went through a stage of listening to certain influencers who said about chasing that kind of, acknowledging that anxiety and almost chasing it. So I was like, actually, do you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to change this negative thing into a positive thing. And don't get me wrong, it was hard. It was so hard, and it took me probably a year and a half to actually get good at turning that negativity that I'm feeling.
Yeah, it's something that you've got to constantly work on.
Yeah, and I mean, I did it by trekking across the Arctic Circle with a group of 10 people that I'd never met in my entire life. Threw myself into
extreme.
That. Bit extreme, but we don't do things by halves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did training days where on my own with people, and I met some amazing friends, and that's our mutual friend of how we found, met each other was through me doing a training day with somebody and meeting our mutual friend, and then obviously met you along the way as well. And I think pushing myself out of my comfort zone, I have gained some amazing experiences and friends, and it is hard and it's not the easiest thing to do, and it is easy for me to sit here and say it, but I have been through it, and it's still something I genuinely will work on every single day.
Yeah, it's like I said, you've something that you've just got to be consistent with. And going back to when you used to struggle getting in the gym, you actually got to a point where you'd turn up to the gym on your own and then actually started speaking to a few people in the gym.
Yeah.
And you made a few little gym buddy friends. I don't think you really knew much about them, but enough to say hello and maybe have a little chat when you were in there.
Yeah.
And that's like a massive step compared to where you were at one point.
And I was messaging you and I was like, I can't go in, there's people there, it looks busy, there's cars outside. And I was going to the gym at 10, 11 o'clock at night just so people weren't there. And now...
But this is the thing, so that was like really unsustainable. Like
Absolutely.
we were saying, like you were on those 12-hour shifts. If you're going to the gym at 10, 11 o'clock at night and getting to bed at probably midnight, if you're on an 8 the next day, then you're just going to feel worse and worse mentally, and it's probably put you off actually going.
Yeah. But now I've got those friends in the gym, and I mean, I saw one this week for my weekly appearance, and they're like, oh, we haven't seen you in ages, and I said, oh, I've been sat outside for 20 minutes, and he was like, oh, we just haven't seen you in ages. I said, I know, I'm coming back, and all of that. But it's just those friendly faces in the gym that now make it so much easier to go back in. But it's taken
it's nice.
A lot. It has taken an awful lot, and,
You should be proud of yourself, though. You've done really well. You came really far along with it. And, like you say, those people that you just see in the gym to say hello. Like, I've been going to the gym for 11 and a half years. And every gym that I've ever been in, the same people have sort of dotted around at the similar times with me. I genuinely don't know half of their names, but I know them enough to sort of like let onto them.
Yeah.
And it's like almost like a comfort thing. Like I don't tend to struggle with being in those situations myself personally, but it is that sort of comfort of just going, oh, I know them.
Yeah, absolutely. And even from my point of view, as going into the gym on my own, if I need a spotter, my gym's one of these 24-hour warehousey gyms. It's not a commercial gym, so it's got big men in it. It can be daunting, but from my point of view now, I've got my gym friends. If I'm struggling with something, I can just go over to them and be like, oh, can you spot me on this? Or can you check I'm doing this right? And it makes all the difference. And I'm not scared to now go in and look stupid. Not that I do look stupid, but in my head, that's me telling myself I will, because I've got them if I need them. And they're more than happy to help, as would anybody in that gym. And I think this is what we forget. People are friendly.
Actually, a lot nicer than you think.
Yeah. And people say this about me all the time, is my resting face is not the friendliest of faces. But when I'm smart, like, I'll do anything for anybody and I'll help you if you need help, anything like that. So
yeah, the chances of you going over to someone in the gym and saying, oh, can I just have a quick spot? The chance of them actually turning around and going, nah, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Is pretty minimal.
It is. Absolutely. But you psych yourself up so much.
Yeah, the only time is when the big guy comes in and asks you, can I have a spot? And he's got like massive amounts of weight. And you're like, if you fall, I don't know if I've got it.
I can't help you.
Yeah, don't ask me.
Can you imagine him asking me?
It's a nightmare. But yeah, you have, like I say, massively came on. And it is just a case of keeping it consistent and up with it.
Yeah. And I think we've had conversations. I've recently not been in the gym. And it has been more because I struggle and then I don't go to the gym, which is actually one of my releases and one of my benefits and ways of supporting my own mental health through work is after shift, I will go to the gym because it's a switch off from work. But then if I'm struggling, let's say anxiety, whatever, and I miss a couple, then that gym anxiety comes back and I can't go. So it's a negative circle. And I mean, we've had this conversation, haven't we? And I've said I just can't get in.
Yeah.
It is really hard, and it's just breaking that negative circle.
Yeah, I think what happens is you sort of get into a routine, your confidence builds, and then say if you miss that like maybe one-off session, your confidence then drops quite rapidly, and then you get into that I can't go back in sort of thing, and it's a case of keeping it consistent, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, we spoke about it, and you're like, do you have anyone that can meet you there? Any gym buddies? Anything like that?
Yeah, we tried to find like any sort of ways around keeping you going, sort of.
Yeah, and I think it is looking for that support network and actually asking somebody. And I did message one of my friends who doesn't normally come to the gym with me, and I just said, look, I need that kind of friendly face in the gym. And they said, yeah, that's fine. And I think it is the key to, if you are struggling or something is bothering you, reaching out, whether it is to a friend, stranger. Do you know, even a stranger, if somebody was walking across the street and went, do you know what, I'm struggling, I'll sit down and listen to you. And it will make a tiny bit of difference. And people do care. Deep down, we do care. So
I think especially as well with that gym buddy, if you've like not particularly feeling like going and you get that message at 5 o'clock to say, are we still going to the gym at 6 o'clock? The chances you're going to turn around and go, no, is a lot less than if you were to be in that situation on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Because quite easily you can be like, I've gone home, I've sat down, it's a bit warm here, all my bed's looking a bit up. You know, that's
what I always used to tell you is go straight from work. Because then you've got no excuse to sit. Yeah. It's just those little mechanisms that you need to sort of, in any aspects really, I don't want to get too deep, but like keeping it like gym based, it is having those little mechanisms of, if I take my stuff to work with me, I can go straight to the gym afterwards.
Yeah.
If I've got a friend that I've got to meet at a certain time, I don't want to let my friend down.
Yeah. And even things like when you are going to the gym or whatever is, from my point of view, anxiety, one of my coping mechanisms is if I'm really stressing about it, let's say in the car on the way to the gym, I will have a conversation with myself and just say, I'm in a safe space at the minute. That is my car. There's nothing. That's my safe space. There's no point in me addressing this anxiety until I get to the gym. And even before I get to the gym, when I walk to the door, all I say to myself is, even if I just walk through the door, step on a treadmill and walk back out to my safe space, which is my car, then I've at least achieved something. And that's now my way of looking at it. I've got a safe space of my car, or even walking down the street, and I've almost put a bubble around that thing that is stressing me or creating this anxiety, and knowing I can always very easily step back out of it and get back in my car, walk down the road in a different direction, all of that sort of stuff. And that took an awful lot of practice.
Yeah.
But that's one of my other ways of looking at it.
I think as well, you've got to remember the feeling that you get when you have stepped in there, you've got your workout done, how much better you feel afterwards.
Absolutely.
Like, I imagine that anxiety just sort of lifts straight off your shoulders because you've gone in there, you've overcome that fear of actually stepping in there in the first place. You've got a really good workout in, you feel great because all your endorphins are running through the roof.
Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, when you've gone in and you've done your first thing, you're in the swing of it then, and you'll carry on.
Oh yeah, you completely zone out.
Yeah, and I think going in with a plan makes all the difference.
Oh yeah, going in a plan is massive.
Yeah, big up you for giving me that fitness plan to go in with.
It's all good. I think we're going to wrap this one up here. I think there's been a lot of value, and I don't want to sort of string it out and it's become a bit watered down.
Absolutely.
But I think that's really useful, and I think if there's anyone that has been listening or watching that has maybe been in a similar position or struggling with the mental health just in general, it's important to sort of reach out to those support functions that you've got, whether it be sort of your inner circle, I guess, with family and friends, or whether it's sort of further afield with any sort of companies out there that help people with mental health.
Yeah, even your GP, and not to go down the medical role or whatever, genuinely phone your GP, and if you are really struggling that badly and you can't keep yourself safe, give 999 a call, because people do care. And from an emergency service side of it, we would much rather come out to you and talk to you and try and put those support networks in place for you than when it's, it's too late and we can't. So I think always reaching out, whether it is to, as you say, family, friends, whatever, or your GP, or the likes of Samaritans, or worst case 999, where,
Exactly. Very well said. And a little personal plug as well. If you're struggling with workouts in the gym, drop me a DM.
Absolutely, it's fantastic. And he checks in on you as well when you're not going to the gym. So
yes.
And there's a bit of moral support. So
yeah, we actually, going back to it, we actually mentioned this before. We actually had a little motivational group chat.
We did.
On Instagram, where we used to send in like little motivational videos to sort of help Steph stay motivated and inspired to be in the gym.
Absolutely. I think we need to go back to it.
I think we do. There's some absolute belters on there, so I'm going to be putting them on my story and share them with everyone else. And hopefully it can help other people. But Steph, thank you very much for coming on the podcast and opening up. I hope it's useful for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
It should be.
I hope so.
There's a lot of very useful information that we've spoken about.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much for listening. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you drop it a like. And if you are new, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.